On this episode of Pet Business Disruptors, we have Harry Chapman, the CEO and founder of Pet, a startup company that's taken the 𝐂𝐓𝐇 market by storm and also has a range of shampoos and supplements. Let's get into it. Welcome to Pet Business Disruptors. I'm Clayton and I'm here today with Harry Chapman, who is the CEO and founder of Pet.
Hi, Clayton.
Well, how are you, sir? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad.
So, you've been going, was it about a year now?
Yeah, we've had our product in the market for about 9-10 months now, and the company was registered in 2023. So yeah, so nearly 2-year birthday, nearly 1 year in the market.
Awesome. So I looked through all your stuff actually. I actually really like the branding of it. I think it's very smart, very modern branding. But you do a range of shampoos and you do your towel range, right?
Yeah, and we also have some nutritional supplements as well for cats and dogs. Okay.
Well, do you want to just walk us through what you do? Because obviously I think the towels are probably the thing which I think are the most standout in terms of interesting.
Yeah, no, of course. So Pet, and thank you very much for the comment on the branding. One of the things we wanted to do was create a really striking brand that took kind of its look and feel outside of the pet industry and lent more towards sort of beauty, that kind of market, just to bring something a bit different. So it looked a bit different on the shelf. So thanks for that. But yeah, so as I say, our range includes shampoos, and we spent a lot of time looking at the market and trying to create this product that had a fragrance in it that was designed specifically for dogs. So it meant they're calmer during bath time. So that's taken, 2.5 years worth of research to get that fragrance. With our multi-fit supplements, again, that a lot of research has gone into create a gummy formulation, really quite unique. But the one product that's taken off and sold really well, really quickly, was our eco towels, which basically consisted of some Google searching and then speaking to people in China. And they were just, and that was the first product that came. And your heart's kind of like, is it worth? We've gone to all these effort for these wonderful products, but obviously they're in more competitive categories, so it's obviously going to take time. But yeah, the eco towels, we launched them first actually back in PATS 2023. And they won an innovation award at PATS, which was fantastic. And basically what they are is they're a pack of biodegradable, natural, single-use towels. So the idea being, instead of lugging around like stinky towels in the back of the car, or if you haven't got a room in the house, you can just use these, pop them in the bin, and they biodegrade. They take their inspiration from the hairdressing industry. Not that I have to worry about that, but
tell me more.
Yeah. I was going to say, very jealous of that. But during COVID, a lot of the hairdressers were using single-use towels because it was a hygienic use, and there were these highly absorbent towels, and that's where we got our inspiration from. So yeah, we brought these towels to the market, and we then, how do we get interest in these towels? We're not quite launched a whole range, and we just went into TikTok and started giving them away, and dog walkers soon picked them up, and there's a few dog walkers that have got quite a lot of followers on TikTok, and they just went viral. And it's funny, sorry if you don't mind me just waffling on.
No, waffle away.
There was TikTok. I didn't know what a TikTok was until I started doing this. I was like, Jesus, I've got to learn this quite quickly. And we gave away these samples of these eco towels to various different people. And one person wanted to work with us, had like 6 million followers. And I was like, oh God, the gravy train's arrived. This is going to be amazing. She did a wonderfully shot video up in Scotland with her dog. It was all beautiful, and no one looked at it. One video got nearly 1 million views, and it was a Labrador phone in the back of a car, Labrador being dried, more real. And it's just showed what resonated with people rather than trying to make it too unrealistic. This really grotty, real video just took off with people, and the eco towels gained really quick traction.
It's interesting because I've worked a lot with influencers with different things I've done, and there is what they call the Lionel Messi effect when they talk about influencers, that big followings doesn't mean like a lot of actual engagement with posts, that sometimes a lot of these really big followers, especially when you pay them, they've got so many things going on. So they'll have, like, let's say 15, 20 stories on their Instagram, and that actually your plug gets buried really easy. Whereas somebody who's, let's say, what they would call like a micro influencer, might only have 20,000 followers, but if they make a very real, very engaging post showing actually this is how I use it and this is a really good way of using it, it can actually get real, not only explosion in virality, but also people going, yeah, I want that myself. And so it's the difference between curated and uncurated. And actually the move is towards uncurated because people actually, they're almost sick of like super curation.
Yeah. Yeah.
They actually want to just see what is real when they're out in the market.
No, absolutely. I think, and I think that was, we found that quite early, and it, for us as a new brand, it's quite safe to have uncurated product because we haven't got a brand to damage. I can imagine if you're in a more of an established brand, it's a bit more scary to go and represent this product, as you want, because we've had videos and stuff created and you look at the environment the video shot in, you're like, I'm not really sure we can use it or we want to be associated because I don't know, whatever the background may be, but it's what the audience wants to see because it's real, isn't it?
Yeah, no, for sure. And so, I mean, look, I like the idea of the eco towels just because obviously I know dog walkers. Yeah. And look, I've also got 5 dogs, and like when you're taking them out and they get absolutely soaking wet, you don't necessarily want to use your own bath towel on it. Do you know what I mean? And so, but then you don't want to use single-use towels, which are just going to go straight in the bin either. No. And end up in landfill. So I like the idea of it. And it's funny that you say that, like, you spent loads of R&D time on like the shampoos and the multivitamin and the supplements and stuff. But that's I think the problem with all sales is you just don't know what's going to kick and what isn't. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, because look, the shampoo sector, I mean, it's a tough sector, isn't it? I mean, there's some very strong players in there at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like with massive ranges. I mean, look, and I think the trouble is that what you're doing in terms of like supplements and shampoos, if you were doing it 10 years earlier, you'd be absolutely killing it out there. But there's been a real wave of those two types of businesses into the market recently.
Yeah, no, there has. I mean, you only got to look at the success of Zesty Paws that came over from the States, and then you've got the other shampoo brands which do really, really well. I mean, yeah, you're right. And I think that's why when we originally started the concept with the shampoos, it was right. We want to make sure they're, all the stuff now that's almost you have to do just to play the game. So we want to make sure they were vegan, they had no nasties, they were formulated by Coat Type. But whilst we were developing it, we realized that's not enough anymore, like you said, because we got delayed and the project didn't start when we wanted to. And then a whole wave of companies launched with all those things. And you're like, well, that's not going to cut through. So that's why we pivoted and focused on the fragrance to try and have a different message in that market. So we did all the hygiene factors you need to have a high quality shampoo, no nasties, vegan, prebiotic, tick. But actually then how do we make our shampoo sound different? And the point being, we've developed this fragrance which dogs tolerate really well, because a lot of dogs don't like bath time. It's because they're over perfumed. They get a bit zoomy-ish after bath time. They get a bit anxious. The idea is our fragrance eliminates those behaviors just to make bath time a more relaxing experience for the dog and therefore for the owner. And coupled with that fragrance, we developed this bottle that makes it really easy to use. Again, just because trying to shampoo a dog's not the easiest thing in the world when they're trying to disappear off into the distance. So we tried to, even though it was a crowded category, create a couple of USPs for us in that market.
So what's unique about the bottle?
So yeah, the bottle, the best description would be like a bottle of ketchup. So it's a no drip bottle. So if you lose the cap, it's got a valve on it which keeps all the product in it. So the idea is you can literally hold it. And there's quite a few famous human shampoo brands that have the same dispensing bottle. So it's simply you squeeze it. You can squeeze it with one hand straight onto the dog's back. You don't have to pump it onto your hands or try and pump it onto the dog. You can just simply use it one-handed. You don't have to put the cap back on. You put it down. It's not leaking anywhere. So it's really good for dogs in the shower, wet hands, but also if people have got limited mobility, those sorts of things, it's much, much easier to use.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. And because that's the thing. I think you do need strong USPs, especially when you're going into something as crowded as a shampoo market. So actually having something which sets you apart. I mean, how many shampoos do you actually do at the moment?
So we just do a range of 5. We do a range which is based on coat. So it's double coat, short, curly, long, and puppy. And we felt we didn't need to do more than that because that covers most ranges of the dogs. We have talked around maybe, do we develop like a white coat? But actually we felt we don't need loads of different ranges. And a lot of the reasons companies have huge ranges because there's different fragrances or different styles or whatever. But actually the point being our fragrances are USP. So every shampoo would only ever smell the same because that's the idea. It's supposed to be this calming fragrance that we've got an IP on. So that's our range. It's 5. And the other point you made right at the start for us was key, was that we branded it in a way that it looks really nice on the shelf.
Yeah.
So the branding actually attracts people in. So instead of hiding it away, it's something they're proud of for their pets because, we know in the industry that people now just want as good a quality product for themselves as for their pet as they do themselves. And so that's what we were trying to achieve as well with this branding, this bottle, that it's something that can sit in the bathroom and not be hidden away.
Yeah. And doesn't look like just a plastic bottle with a sticker on it, which once it gets a bit wet, it starts like crumpling up and like coming off in your hands and that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Well, something that, you've paid a bit of money for this. Oh, actually, it's really good quality. The smell's great. The result's great, but it actually handles great. Every touch point is good because at the end of the day, the owner doesn't know really how healthy the dog's skin is. No. They don't really know if the dog's tolerating the smell or not, but they know how easy the bottle was to use, right? Yeah. That's the one touch point that might get repeat business, other than the dog just generally looking in better condition. So that was also important.
Yeah. So at the moment, like where are your sales coming from in terms of like the shampoos, the 𝐂𝐶𝐓?
So in the UK, home market, the 𝐂𝐶𝐓s raced out the gate and they were the most popular thing. I am mortally disappointed that it hasn't rained since about the middle of September. Last autumn was the wettest autumn we've ever had because I coached my son's football team and like every weekend our game was cancelled. This year it hasn't rained at all. So I'm like, come on, do my rain dances. So the UK, the 𝐂𝐶𝐓s have taken off really well and the shampoos are now really building. Interestingly, the double coat being the most popular SKU. I think it's because it's got a shedding, it helps with shedding, so it's quite a functional product. So that's within the UK. We also have a footprint globally, and the shampoos are really popular in Asia. So we've got distribution into South Korea, and the short coat, long coat and double coat sell really well there. And in China, our multi-fits sell really, really well. Our supplements go really well into there. We haven't really done a lot in the UK with our supplements yet, but we've got some interest building. We're starting to sort of start on that route. So we did the 𝐂𝐶𝐓s, we moved on to the shampoos, and now we're starting to promote the supplements, the multi-fits.
So in terms of the supplements, I'm obviously a bit of a supplement obsessive. So sell me on your supplements, like, because obviously I think the supplement market, it's gone from being SA37 and seaweed powder years ago, and VitaPet, with Dorwest really the only ones who did it properly, to now suddenly there's an explosion. I read like a report in 2020 about how the supplement market was due to explode, and since then it's exploded. So like what is it about yours which is different and unique?
So a couple of things. The first thing is we developed, we wanted to use a product that had veterinary scientific data behind it. We didn't want it to be snake oily in a way. So we go, if we're going to stand there and go, this does this, we need to be able to justify it with various different things. So we looked on the market around different functional ingredients, and the one that we settled on was plasma, because plasma wasn't used widely. The reason we settled on it was it's got a raft of scientific benefits. The main one being it's kind of boosts the immune system. and has sort of anti-inflammatory effects, and therefore it works in numerous places in the body. So it's also a sustainable ingredient because it's a byproduct of the human food market. And I thought that was really important for us as a business as well, that we're not sourcing ingredients that are competing with the human food chain. They're a byproduct of it. So as gruesome as it sounds, I think you say plasma, a lot of people either think Ghostbusters or they think vampires. But
it's also highly palatable, plasma.
Yeah.
Like I remember years ago, we used to add plasma into some dog foods, like to give it extra palatability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be sprayed on or added to wet food as well. So that was the other point. It's like it kind of ticked a lot of boxes for us as an ingredient. So we paired it with collagen, which has given us our first base of multifits. The other thing that we did was we looked at what can we tap in, like we did with the shampoos, like we did with the eco towels. What can we tap into from what's happening in human market that people might want to bring into their dogs? And so we developed a gummy, and that was our other USP, because you've got dry treats, you've got soft chews, you've got like hard chew sticks or whatever, but there wasn't something that was a gummy formulation, whereas a lot of people, if they give their kids vitamins or they take vitamins themselves, it's a gummy. So it was a way to cut through the noise to kind of explain this is a treat with benefits, it's a gummy. So that's taken a lot of work, because obviously it's sugar free, it's not using what you would use in a human gummy, but we've managed to develop a gummy formulation which is really soft, really palatable. The dogs and cats seem to love it. So that was what also we've done. So we've got this plasma collagen functional base, and then we've got a gummy formulation again to make us different in the market.
And I suppose the collagen acts as like the stabilizer anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah, so gelatin, plasma and collagen are the stabilizers, but we don't need to use that much gelatin because we've got plasma and collagen act quite like that. And the other ingredients in it, what's really nice about the gummy is the other ingredients are just rice and carrot.
Okay.
Right, so it's a very simple natural mix of products with some it's got some rosemary extracts and vitamin E as antioxidants to keep the product, stop the product going moldy.
Yeah, that's always a good thing.
Yeah, because when we first, funny enough, when we first developed the product, it was when that program came out. Was it The Last of Us?
Okay,
and the developer sent me a picture going, I think we've just created The Last of Us in our Petri dish, because it was just all this fungus and mold, because it's got quite a high water content. So so we've developed this. That was how we tried to make ourselves unique, like we did with the shampoo. A couple of things just to make it a bit different and a bit interesting. So for the supplements, it's natural, sustainable ingredients which are veterinary science behind them, and then this kind of unique format as well in terms of a gummy.
Okay, and is there what kind of how many SKUs do you have of that?
At the moment, we've got 4 SKUs. We've got 2 for dog, 2 for cat, and it was really important for us when we did Pet that we were a pet company, because I think cats do get overlooked.
Yeah.
They're seen as the poor cousin, and actually, there's a huge potential in the cat market, and
the reason being, though, I can tell you why they're the poor cousin, is because if you look at grocery, cats are very much tuned towards grocery, the grocery channel, which means that the average pet store doesn't see a cat owner as much as it might see a lot of other owners. And so dog is primarily where pet special heads, but then you also have small animal, reptile, etc. But cat goes like disproportionately through grocery. So it's because there's as many, I think there's almost as many cat owners as there are dog owners, but as pet specialists, we don't see the cats as much. So that's kind of where the malaise is, I think, sometimes amongst people like me who are pet specialist merchants, is that we're kind of like, sell some cat litter, and we do some bits and pieces like cat flea drops and that sort of stuff so well, but so much of the food trade goes through the supermarket channels. So that's probably why. I can see that. I had the pleasure of going to the National Cat Show. It was the first one they launched earlier in the year, and we had a little stand there just to go along. It was a really good event, and you don't ever get the chance ever really to talk to cat owners about cats, because
like you do for dog owners. You're a dog walk or whatever. You just talk to people about dogs. Very rarely do you talk about cats. So it was really interesting to engage with cat owners around how they treat their cats, what their cats like, what their cats do. But one thing that struck me at the show was that, and because one of the reasons I think often dog dominates as well is there's more money in dog. It's because the dog's bigger, you buy more food, it's whatever. But was not many people just have one cat. And I know this is skewed towards the cat show, but there's some people like, I've got 2, I've got 3. And you think, well, 3 cats equals, 1 Labrador in terms of spend. So yeah, the one individual still has the same capacity, but as you're saying, I think it does pull towards the grocery though. Yeah.
And I think that's why I think pet specialists probably are weaker on cat than we are on other animals, just because you're not seeing them as regularly. Like a dog customer will come into you every week or every couple of weeks to buy their food, and then they'll buy some treats and some knickknacks and that sort of stuff. Whereas a lot of cat customers, if they're shopping in the supermarket, they'll only come to you if they want some flea treatment, or they're looking for a cat post, or And look, cat litter, you can buy that stuff in grocery as well, like B&M's, places like that will all sell cat litter at very low prices. So it makes them less of a target audience for pet specialty, which is why I think we ignore it more than we should. But it's difficult because it's trying to drag people across. And look, cats as well, they're a lot fussier when it comes to eating. So
I mean, what is it? So for our palatability tests, a good score on treats is 80% for dogs. For cats, it's down at 60%. That's the industry standard of, if you get to 60, that's good. And that's like only just over half, isn't it? So as you say.
Yeah. And also the cats as well, like they're not as big in terms of treat eating as dogs as well. Like I think like pedigree breeds are made of cats, but like actual, your average cat, they're known more to play with toys than they are to actually eat treats, to be honest, as well. Again, because they're just fussier eaters. Generally, they tend to eat what's in their bowl, which they like, and then they have like a hunting mentality for everything else. So and treats don't generally fit into that as much.
No. And when we were looking at the multi-fits for cats, that's what we were trying to do, is like, how can it be added to the food? Can they be supplements you just put into the food? So they don't have to be like a treat. They could be things to be added in. But yeah, you're right. I think in terms of engagement with the cat piece, it's finding out how best they interact with the product.
So how did you get into all this anyway, Harry? Because I know your background is in pet.
Yeah. So I this question, I used to like answering it, but the longer the span you've been in industry, you realize the older you are.
Yeah. When I tell people I was wholesaling for 20 years, it definitely puts me over the age of 40.
Yeah. So that's the issue. That's it. That's the thing now. I'm like, I've been in the pet industry for, really? Yeah. So it'll be coming up to 16 years I've been in the pet industry now. So I had a little bit of time in another industry first, then came into the pet industry in a commercial role for a nutraceutical company, and I loved the industry. I was promoting to vets, and it was a really nice industry to work in. And then from there, I worked for a couple of pharmaceutical companies, Bayer and Elanco, in various commercial roles, and actually got into the retail side when I was at Bayer, and started working with companies like Pets at Home, the e-commerce companies. How do we start promoting product out to consumers? Because obviously, if you're working in the vet industry, none of that stuff matters because you don't have to do it. You focus on business to business. And I really got a passion for this kind of direct to consumer type business and to business to consumer. And then did a bit of time in the nutritional side of the market as well, and then was in a position where I was lucky enough to be able to try and start doing my own thing. And I met my co-founding team, who had a background in building successful brands from the human market. It's funny, when you work in pet, you have to refer to the human market. and they come from beauty. And I always say, they work from human beauty. And everyone's like, what other kind of beauty is that? Oh, no, but I work in pet. I work in pet. And I have to frame everything as human. So, their background was, from sort of skincare and beauty, building those sorts of brands. And that's why our brand looks the way it does. And we started chatting and got on really well. And then, the idea of Pet was ruminated. So that's how I sort of came to this. I thought, well, am I going to regret in a few years looking back and going, oh, I got another commercial role, or am I going to regret not doing my own thing? So I thought, I've got to try and do my own thing. If it go down in a blaze of glory, it'll either work or it won't, but at least I'll know I've tried.
Yeah. And like, how have you found the transition? Because obviously working in a corporate environment to running your own business is very different. I mean, look, I've done minimal corporate jobs in my life. When I was a teenager, I worked for Sheraton hotels. But other than that, I've just worked for either pet companies or run a pet business. I'd imagine it's quite a big transition because it's, corporates, they're quite pigeonholed in terms of like what you do. Whereas if you're running a business, you have to be, chief cook and bottle washer, as they say,
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a huge transition. It's night and day. But I think if in my previous roles in commercial, I was quite lucky where I was able to create something in the safety of a corporate. So whilst as a Bayer, we had to create the retail unit. So it was quite entrepreneurial. Where I struggled was in the companies where like you said, it was very pigeonholed. This is what you do and what you go through. So the things that's been the most liberating is you are doing everything. I mean, the amount I've learned in 2 years is incredible. I've learned about international distribution. I've learned about logistics partners. I've learned about TikTok, social media. There's different challenges each day and you have to adapt to find it. I think the scariest thing is there is nothing. There is no safety net. I've got a family and whatnot, and you go out and you go, right, it's the scariest thing in the world. It doesn't matter what anyone tells you about horror movies, ghosts, whatever. No, the scariest thing in the world is my cash flow spreadsheet, where you're planning and you're like, oh, right, how are we going to manage and live and survive? And I think that's the biggest shift is that when I was in corporate world, you'd go out, you'd stay in a hotel overnight, you buy lunch because whatever. Here, I remember I was at Interzoo at the breakfast buffet making my lunch because I didn't want to spend any money. It's just that mindset where every penny is worth so much, and it's how quickly you can adapt to that. And I must admit that was the biggest shift. The first 6 months, people tell you how important it is, but you don't really realize how important it is. And then it starts to build. You go, right, okay. And it's amazing how resourceful you can be and how many good people are out there that won't take the mick. They won't just, because there's a lot of people who charge you through the nose. We'll do this, we'll fix your website. Okay, what's the quote? 10 grand. yeah, okay. But actually you can find some fabulous freelance individuals, people with great skill sets that operate with you and work with you, and it doesn't cost you the world. So again, it's going out and finding the right partners. And if they're not right, we're realizing that really quickly.
Yeah. And look, I think we're lucky in the pet industry, I think, compared to other industry, that I think people who are looking to rinse people there isn't as many, because it's not seen as being like a high, it's not like SaaS where, do you know what I mean? Where it's not expected, no one's expecting to become multimillionaires from it.
No.
So I think like when people come into this industry, they tend to do it for the right reasons more than I think some other industries, which I'm aware of. I try and see us as a community in this industry, and like this is why I do the podcast, is I want to try and bring us together as a community and actually get ideas out there and get people talking about what they do. And that's for that reason, is because I see us all as, we come into this because we actually care.
Yeah.
And I think like when you actually start from that premise, the idea of like then having people over continuously, it's not as appealing, is it?
No. And I think you're right. I think that's one of the lovely things about the industry, is that people are very generous with their time and their expertise and are willing to help and pass on their suggestions and contacts and stuff like that. I think there is that. I've been to, you've been to industry events or whatever for other industries, and there's, that's my competition, I'm not going to chat to them, or I can't tell them this. Whereas I think here it's like, yeah, you sell shampoo, we sell a shampoo, but who cares? Let's just have a chat. How's it moving forward? What can we learn from each other? I don't really feel there's that toxic competition, and that's quite nice. It's quite refreshing.
Yeah, because I think there's enough space for everyone.
Yeah.
I think there's enough space for everyone. And look, I think especially in shampoos, I know we said it's quite like full of people, but at the same time, there's still enough variations out there where there's enough work for everyone. And I think, besides some people are absolutely steaming trying to produce a new product every other week, like I think most people are like, there's enough variation on the market to give people a chance, And
I also think we're based in the UK, right? And the UK is quite an established market with quite a lot of smaller companies, a lot of people cropping up. And like we said, there's loads of good quality products, both in supplement and in shampoo, and it doesn't matter what category, there's lots of good stuff. It's not the case in every market. And I think that's the other thing that I've learned with doing .pet is to look up and look out and what else is available, because some markets, okay, they're not as big as the UK, they're not far off, but they're also not as advanced necessarily as well. And the wave of supplements, shampoos, whatnot we've had come through the UK hasn't happened in some other countries. And actually it's easier to gain traction in those countries if you can find the right partners as well. So that's also what I found quite important. And that's why we wanted to do shows like Interzoo, to try and meet people from other countries where pet is just starting to get its momentum. And
look, I think I travel a lot. I just came back from Paraguay a week or so ago, and I went into a pet store there, and they had a range of shampoos and supplements. And I was talking to the lady in the store, and she was just saying that that it's really starting to blow up there, the whole pet industry, that people are starting to bring their animals indoors now and treat them like members of the family. They kind of reminded me of, let's say, the Irish pet trade 20 years ago. It was very similar there, that if you went into a pet store in the 90s in Ireland, it was like all like bags of random food, a little bit of stuff, a little bit of supplement, a little bit of this and that. But actually, like, everywhere's on the same trajectory of it. And it's just about being first to market. And I do think your brand and your branding, it's kind of made for the Asian market, if I'm honest. Knowing how the Asian market works, that sort of like very clean, very sort of beauty orientated look. There's a lot of, let's say, Asian people who are in the right sort of market sector who I think would really love the brand. So it doesn't surprise me when you said that you've already got traction in South Korea and
there's also, excuse me, from the perspective of cats as well, that market's quite important because they treat their cats very differently to us. So I think that market is prime for cats as well. When we started going on TikTok and our eco towels really took off, TikTok was just developing their pet category, and so we got invited into the fold because they thought we were going to be the next big thing, only when it rains. But the agency, they then introduced us to this agency, and they shared with us loads of videos, because obviously TikTok's origin is China, loads of videos from the Chinese market. It's just like you say, it's unbelievable what you couldn't put that content really in it just wouldn't resonate the way it was coming across. So you're absolutely right with that attitude being very different. Some of the videos were like, wow, not bad, but they were just like the way they was cut and shot and what they were showing was just incredible. Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing, is that every market has its own cultural nuances.
Yeah,
and you can have a product which like doesn't sell in one market and absolutely kills in another, and it literally is just about just tweaking it for the market, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw your products and I did actually initially think that that'd be great for the Asian market.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, isn't it? Yeah, it's funny where you gain the traction to start with and what captures people's imaginations. Yeah.
Well, it's like the retail, the company I work for at the moment, the retail product we have, I immediately looked at and thought this is a US market product, and that's where 90% of our sales come from, was the US market,
right?
Because it sits within their realm better than it does here, just because of just cultural differences and how we operate and stuff. And so it makes sense.
Yeah,
it makes sense. Yeah. What sort of plans have you got going forward in terms of?
Oh, grand plans, world domination and all that sort of stuff. No. So with us, because the problem is if without focus, you can do everything and you think, oh, that's a good idea, well, that's a good idea. And you end up, becoming so scattergun, you don't really stand for anything.
Yeah.
So for us moving forward, our two key areas of development are fragrance and nutrition. So that's kind of like how are we going to develop a range of products that make sense that are built around these key areas? Because also what we want to, as a brand, we want to try and make pet parenthood a walk in the park, right? That's our idea, is how do we solve problems? How do we make it easier to bath your dog? How do you make it easier to dry your dog's paws? How do you make it easier to keep your cat healthy or whatever? Keep your cat happy. But we want to do that mainly through fragrance and nutrition. So as we roll into next year, we want to extend our supplement range. So we've not just got the 4, we've got a wider range of those with some products with specific conditions, like for calming, for skin, those sorts of things in this gummy format. But we also want to develop our fragrance away from just a dog fragrance and to have a cat fragrance. So we can start to develop products that may calm cats, calm dogs through sprays, or put them into cat litter, those sorts. So we want to look through that. What can we use the anchor of fragrance to develop for pets, and what can we use the anchor of nutrition? And then with our eco towels, we shall see if we could. We looked at could we infuse a fragrance into them, and the manufacturer said, yeah, absolutely. Minimum order quantity is 100,000. That's fine. We'll save that one for when we're a multinational company. You know what I mean? But we're just thinking about how we can improve and iterate on our products to keep making them useful and relevant.
Yeah. That's interesting, man.
Yeah. So we're also going to be doing, the usual things. So we'll be at Crufts again. Despite last year, we'll be at Crufts again. We got put in a bit of a bad place last year, so we're hoping to be put in a better place this year. Yeah. And then we're going to do Zoomark in Bologna as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So again, I think the international shows have a value.
Yeah, it's funny because I love Crufts. I think Crufts is a great show for brands, just because you get to see so many actual end users and actually get that grassroots feeling. Not a fan of Zoomark. No.
I did Interzoo. We did Interzoo.
Interzoo's brilliant.
I thought it was too big.
It is too big. I know, 100% agree. I'll be honest, my big problem with Interzoo is what, 16 halls?
Yeah.
And I've been to Interzoo. I've been going to Interzoo since 2002. And I can tell you, I've never ever been to every hall. Any time I went, I've never been to every hall because it's too big.
Yeah.
You do like 3-4 halls in a day and you're like done.
Yeah.
And what are you doing? 3 days there? So you're going to miss out on 4 halls.
Yeah. And you get a little bit blind to it because after a while, everything starts to look the same. Even though it's not, it just starts to look the same.
But also, I think as well is that my experience with Interzoo as well is that when you're in Interzoo, like let's say when I was a distributor, you go to a stand and you'd never be able to talk to somebody who could actually answer any questions. It would be, oh, look, just email us. And so by the time you leave, you've got like a carrier bag full of cards and leaflets and crap. And you're like, oh man, I can't remember what half this shit was, to be honest. And your motivation's gone to get back to all these people. Whereas people who can actually tell you what you need to know on the stand, you can quickly either chalk them up or cross them off.
Yeah.
And I find that was Interzoo. But it is fascinating. I do like Interzoo. Zoomark, I'll be honest with you, I just found it a bit quiet, if I'm honest.
Okay.
Just like a bit underwhelming, generally.
Right, okay. Is that because you get around it all in one day?
It's still pretty big.
Isn't it?
It's still pretty big.
And it's a strange layout up and down those kind of,
Yeah, I'll be honest, if you said to me, what's your favourite show, I'd say Super Zoo in the US.
Yeah.
Like, partially for the pool parties, but like...
I don't want to think about that.
Mainly because if you've got 2 days, you can get around it all in 2 days comfortably. And it's just, I like the layout, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it's like anything. It's like you can have too much choice of everything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And the problem is that, like with Interzoo, is how many, you've got a lot of foreign brands there. And if let's say I'm a distributor, I might have, let's say 400 or 500 accounts. But you go up to a lot of these people and it's like, you got to buy a container at FOB China. And you're like, oh, a container of that crap. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people there who are undealable with in your circumstance, if you know what I mean.
No, I do. Yeah. Minimum order quantities are like what I just said about our towels, 100,000. Yeah, well, it's not feasible. No.
So like that's I suppose that's the issue with Interzoo. But I just find it interesting from just a finger on the pulse kind of.
Yeah. Well, I went. So we just came into existence when Zoomark was 2023, and I went to visit, to walk around. We exhibited at Interzoo, so we're going to exhibit there. Bologna's nicer than Nuremberg, though.
Oh god, yeah. Oh god, yeah. I'd rather have like a. Don't get me wrong. From an exhibiting point of view, I'd much rather be in Bologna than be in Nuremberg, because like Bologna is lovely.
Yeah.
But just as an exhibitor, I just found it was quiet compared to Interzoo.
I'll have to feed back to you.
Yeah.
Are you going?
Maybe. I'm not. If I go, I'll just go as like somebody having a look. To be honest,
mooch around.
Yeah. But
as you say, I think it's always useful for these shows because it's you can see where, because if people are going to launch something new, they'll be there, won't they? So you get your finger on the pulse, you see what's happening.
I just think that like a lot of companies will wait till Interzoo rather than ZooMark, just because it's a much bigger show. And also, I think everybody goes to Interzoo, whereas maybe half the people go to ZooMark. So, like you'll literally get everybody at Interzoo. It's just whether or not they find you.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? At least maybe the half people that go to ZooMark will find you.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
So, and we might do some of the UK ones as well next year as well. But
Pats was good this year.
Yeah. We didn't exhibit because there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
There's only so much. We did 2023. We didn't this year because we did Interzoo and some other bits and pieces. But yeah, because it's moving to the NEC, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the only thing I would say with Pats is it was so busy when I got there. They weren't letting me into the car park because it was full.
Not because of your reputation.
Well, possibly. Possibly. I was driving my girlfriend's car though, so they shouldn't have recognised me, to be fair. They do generally exclude me from these things, but no, it's much better in the centralized format. I've been saying for years they needed to get rid of Sandown because I've done Sandown and it was crap.
It didn't quite work, did it?
It was like, I'll be honest, I hate the venue. Like I hated the upstairs downstairs.
Yeah.
But also the problem is when you have 2 shows a year, it becomes ultra regional. So you just end up with like Sandown was just loads of people from Surrey, Kent, Sussex. And then you had like Telford just became people from Wolverhampton and Manchester.
Yeah.
And like at least this year, everyone went. It's like it's an event.
Yeah.
As opposed to, well, I'll go to the other one, you know.
Yeah. Well, easy to get to as well next year for everyone.
Yeah. Although I do quite like the Telford Centre. I just think it's needs more parking, to be honest. Just like the parking was a nightmare, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I suppose in a while it might attract more international delegates if it's in Birmingham because it's easy to fly in and out and stuff. So.
Yeah. No, so in terms of distribution, like how are you finding that in the UK? Because obviously, the big problem I find from brands is that for me, a lot of the real value is driven through independence in terms of educating customers and getting people to understand stuff. But with that comes a problem that independents struggle to make up minimum orders direct from brands. And so you need to go through distributors if you can. I mean, how are you finding that as a challenge?
Yeah. So a key for us as a brand right from the off is that we wanted to be an omni-channel brand. We didn't want to be direct to consumer. We didn't want to just be retail. We wanted to be omni-channel. And as you rightly say, you've got your big corporates in the UK market, but the majority of pet stores are independent if you took pure numbers. So for us, that was always really important right from the start, was that we wanted to access independent pet shops and groomers as well, if relevant. But but the key is it's distribution. And I think with the distribution market, there's not loads of choice.
No.
And because there's not loads of choice, they're really busy from being contacted by millions of different people. So it's trying to get time to explain why our product or our brand or our company would be a good fit for them and why it'd be a good fit for their customers. Because ideally, at the end of the day, that's who's going to move the product and how we're going to support their customers. So it's difficult, and I think it's difficult because I think it's not a huge pool of there's not a huge pool of distributors that people use. So therefore the ones are busy and they haven't got a lot of time. So you've just got to try and use each touch point as effectively as you can to maximize your share of voice.
Yeah, because I do think, like, for example, your towels, for example, like if I had a pet store, I'd 100% stock them. But would I be, what's the word? Will I be motivated enough to buy direct? That's always the problem, isn't it? And and actually getting a minimum order. I mean, what is your minimum order direct to retailers?
So we don't, because we're starting off, we created on our website, we had a little platform. We don't really stipulate, right?
Okay.
So someone, if they wanted to go and order like one bottle of each shampoo to start with, we say, well, you can start like that. It's not going to be a long-term thing, but to start with, you can see if it sells, and then we can start to talk around, well, how it would work. So we have a trade portal on our website where people can do really small orders. But I think even still, if that makes us accessible to people through that, it's another admin task, which if you run your own shop, you haven't really got a lot of time. And that's the beauty of the distributor, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's one point of call and one order. Yeah. And I think when you're running your own, I can testify, when you're running your own business, anything that saves you time and effort is going to be, because you'd have to be really into our towels, right? Really into them, to want to log on to .pet and order them. And great, some people do. But that's why we want to tap into the distributor, because it's just from a small business perspective that they're just the lifeblood, aren't they?
Yeah, and look, every brand that's done well has done well via the independent sector, because that's where the education comes in. That's where the people actually really get behind products and actually like say, because look, it's a knowledge heavy industry. And, this is why loads of products don't work in groceries, because you'll go into a supermarket and you won't understand the USPs of the product, whereas a pet specialist retailer does. And so it's so important to be through there, but it's also important to give them a route to your product that actually isn't going to cause them loads of grief.
No, quite. Well, we are, strangely enough, we found it easier, and we're into the vet distributors.
Okay.
We are in the MWI.
Okay.
And shortly to be in Covetrus. So we found that actually weirdly, because we're not vet, we're retail products, easier to get in. And that's because we've had listings in e-commerce sites that buy through MWI. And we've also had listings, just about to secure listing to go into independent vet care in some format. And so that's allowed us to go into the veterinary wholesalers. And again, because our eco towels are now in there, I think they could have quite a useful potential to have quite a use as a sort of surgical item in vets, for cleaning up, mopping up, because they're more absorbent than blue towel. And, they could actually be quite handy during an operation procedures and stuff. So that's an interesting avenue for us.
Yeah. And they compost as well, right? So again, whereas does blue towel compost? I'm not sure it does.
No.
I don't really know.
No. But obviously it depends what they're absorbed in. You wouldn't be able to compost it if it's got some horrible muck all over it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true enough. Although I've got to be honest, I don't compost anything in my house, to be honest.
It depends how effective your composting is.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Compost everything in my bin. But
it's like the food bins during the summer, isn't it? When the council don't come for 2 weeks.
Oh, my
they're not the most pleasant things in the world.
Absolutely honking. Absolutely honking. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, there is so many distributors over here. I think although the golden goose, I think nowadays is probably Pedigree Wholesale. I mean, we still have Vital, we have Best Pets, we have Trust, we have like the small Armstrong Richards, and we have the smaller regionals like Satellite and people like that out there. Cobb Dog, Cobb Dog Mill, yeah. I mean, but I think the problem is that with all these wholesalers, they also need help selling the product, because if you're a Cobb Dog Mill, your job isn't to explain to people how, the benefits of shampooing their dog with .pet. No.
I wish they would.
Yeah, I know, it'd be handy, right? But it's they have enough problems. I think most people have enough problems explaining their own products, let alone someone else's. So.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's a massive undertaking getting a brand out there.
Yeah, it is, and that we're very conscious of that. And with the way we set up the business and everything, was that we've got a model that allows us to go into distribution, but then if we do go into distribution, that we can support it as well, that we wouldn't want to just put products, because it's easy. I mean, it's not easy, but the easiest part of that process is putting it on someone else's shelf, isn't it?
Yeah.
The hardest bit is getting someone to take it off the shelf that to buy into your brand. So we're acutely aware of that, and that's why we want to try and build this community. It's why we really work hard on TikTok and our social channels. We're starting to work harder on Meta. We've just done we've just started an influencer campaign this month using Dogfluencer.
Okay.
Because and these things aren't revolutionary, but we know that we need to just keep the momentum into the product. So if it does, when it goes into stores, we can say we've already got 20, 30,000 people that know the brand, that want it, they're interested. Then we'll invest more to get the pet shops to know. So
and also look, it's keeping up with grassroots shows like Crufts. Because again, like there's a lot of people. So for example, I used to have a customer. So one of my main things I used to sell a lot of was natural dog treats. I was in natural dog treats.
Like rabbit ears and stuff like that.
So I was in it before it got saturated as hell, and everyone and their uncle had a natural dog treat company. But I would bring out new products and I would take them to Crufts. And I used to have a customer, and I used to work with him at Crufts, mainly because he was a terrible payer. And if I didn't work with him, he didn't pay me. So I would work on the stand and actually take the money and go, right, this is for my stock. But the reason I used to do it was because if you had a new product, you would sell so much at Crufts that it would proliferate out to all the pet shops. And so someone would come in and buy rabbit's ears, for example, love the product, and then they would go to their local pet shop and go, I bought these rabbit's ears at Crufts. And then people would then phone me up and say, like, do you sell rabbit's ears? Oh, yeah, damn right I sell rabbit's ears. And that would be my way of proliferating around the stores, because if you've got a great product, people use it, the end user buys it, and then they then push the pet stores to actually get it in stock, because they don't necessarily want to buy it online.
No, quite.
So doing that, but I always say it's a multi-level approach to everything. You need to hit the grassroots. You've got to get in with the independents or the corporate stores, and you also need to get in with distribution. And it's that sandwich approach that you're always looking to try and tackle. And look, it's tough when you.
Well, it's the thing as well, and it's also knowing where to place your bets, isn't it? And that's one of the issues now. I think that's cropped up more so in recent years is that it always used to be Crufts, right? That's where you went, but Crufts. Are people going to spend as much money? Who knows? Then there's other great shows now like Edition Dog. There's London Pet Shows just relaunching next year. There's Dog Fests. There's Goodworth, and you think can't do it. It's like where do you place your bets? And because none of them are
not that was it the one we went to in the
God,
what was it called, the
Pet Innovation? Wasn't it the Pet Innovation Zone? No, the Garden Centre Expo.
The Garden Centre Expo. That was literally the worst show I think I've ever been to in my life.
The ghost town. 2 days of talking to other people on stands, which is lovely to get to know people, I say. But when you think you could do that and not have paid money towards it. I've never been in a more. I think we were saying earlier, wasn't it? It's nothing more depressing than standing in the XL when no one's speaking to anyone.
It's brutal.
Yeah,
it's brutal. Like and it goes so slowly, doesn't it? Like I said to you, I did a pet expo before in Turkey, and my God, I definitely chose the wrong one because it was so quiet. It was brutal, absolutely brutal.
Yeah. Oh, it's horrible, and it just turns you into an horrible person as well, doesn't it? It's like then when people do actually, what that one person comes to speak, like, oh, don't talk to me.
Yeah, no, I've had enough.
Cannot be bothered.
I've had enough, man.
Yeah,
I've had enough.
Yeah. Or and they tell you about the fact they want to sell you some packaging. You're like, go on then. Just I want something to do for 10 minutes.
Well, it was funny because when I was at that show, I actually went on to this sustainable fertilizer company, and I was, I wouldn't normally do this, like go and talk to people about what I do. And he was going, this is the best conversation I've had since I've been here. I'm not doing that. I was just talking to about sustainable fertilizer for 10 minutes.
At least it wasn't just us then.
No. I think it was everybody there was just absolutely in tears, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think they'll have a retention problem for next year.
I do think they might have a few fewer sign-ups next year than we had. But it's as I said, that's the danger with these things, isn't it? That you try, and that's the beauty of running your own business. Is you've got to take a punt on certain things. Perhaps 1 or 2 of them will pay off, but 8 or 9 of them won't.
No, and everything is like that.
Yeah.
And look, the reality is at these shows, you don't need many customers to make it worthwhile.
No.
And even if you are, like, it feels a bit brutal. If you just came away with a couple of clients, that's actually That's actually all right.
Yeah. And well, especially for a small business, because at the end of the day, if you had 10 people, you can't service them.
Yeah.
Right, to start with, can you? So you want to delight those 1 or 2 people to start with, and then you get your reputation, you build from there. So yeah, you're right. Yeah. But it can feel disheartening, can't it?
No, for sure. Yeah, no. It's just, it can be highly depressing. You've gone to all that effort, and you're staying in a hotel in London and all the rest of it. And
well, luckily I travelled in and out, so I avoided the extra cost of that. So the hotel.
Although just travelling into London is a headache.
Yeah, it's a bit brutal.
Yeah, and the EXL, it's not the easiest place to get to in London, is it?
No, I ummed and ahed on the train, but that's the other thing now. Like, I drove because the train's like, it's a small holiday. 2 trips to London on subsequent days. I don't have a rail card, I don't have a season ticket. It was like, I could take the family away.
Yeah, no. Well, I just got the train up to Edinburgh, and that was 143 quid return. And you think I've booked a flight to Ireland at the end of the month for my niece, and I think that was 60 quid or something. So it's cheaper for me to go to Ireland on the plane. It's
crazy. I met one of our customers at London Vet Show yesterday, one of our distributors, and they flew into Luton and then got a taxi into London. And they said the flight for them both was obviously cheaper and quicker than the taxi from Luton to London. So I was like, yeah, you picked the wrong airport, I think. Should at least chose London City. You just walked across. But oh God.
Right, so Harry, if people want to get hold of you, what's the best way of doing it?
Oh, on TikTok. No.
Yeah. Follow me on TikTok.
At @.pet.
Follow me on TikTok.
No, the best thing to do, check our website. It's I will say, when we named the company, I didn't realise it was going to be so hard to say my email address or the website because we've got 2 dots.
All the dots.
Yeah, I was like, well, there are dots that are dots and dots that are spelt dot. But our website is .pet.com, and you can contact me at harry@.pet.com.
Awesome. And like you said, if you're a B2B business, you want to work.
Please reach out, anyone, B2B businesses, groomers, distributors, anything. We're happy to have a conversation and see if our brands are fit for your customers.
Awesome. No, thanks a million for coming in, Harry.
Thanks for inviting me along, Clayton.
Thanks.
Great.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.